Morning.
Thank you. Okay. Yesterday we had the Mishnah, and the issue was that even when there's Yibum, the mitzvah of Yibum always overrides the Isser to marry a sister-in-law. That's what is inherently as a sister-in-law, and the Torah says to do it. But the Mishnah says that there are other arayos if the woman would be related to the surviving brother in 15 other ways, so it doesn't permit Yibum, and there's no Yibum and no Chalitza. It also said that not only if she's the only wife, if she has a co-wife, and the co-wife is not related to the Yavam, also since one of the wives is related to him, so then there's no Yibum or Chalitza to that brother at all. If there are other brothers, then they'll marry. But if he's the only brother, so then there's no Yibum and no Chalitza. Today's Gemara is easy, I think, relatively, and it's just going to talk about certain points in the Mishnah, and it's going to analyze them. And the first point it analyzes is the order of the Mishnah, the order of the Arayas. So just to get the screen on, if that helps. This was yesterday's chart, and we had here there are 14. The one that's missing is the Eshes Sachar Shalahaya Balama, which was if the two brothers did not see each other, that the live brother was born after the dead brother died. That I can't write. That I couldn't write over here. I did not do it, but there's one here, and we have here 3 of his daughters, daughter, granddaughter, both from a son and a daughter. Also his wife's daughter and 2 granddaughters, mother-in-law, and those 3 generations up. Also his half sister and his aunt, and from the mother's side over there, and also his sister-in-law, his wife's sister, and the other side also called her a sister-in-law. It's his half-brother's wife, and at last we had also Abarakala, his daughter-in-law, and Eshes Shaloi Balam was also over there. The list of the Mishnah, just anybody that's on Zoom, did the picture change to a list of 15? Is there a list on the screen now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know how it works over here. So the list of the Mishnah, I just wrote out the list. These are the 15. And the Gemara is now going to talk about the order. Why did the Mishnah choose the order that it did? Bito, Bas Bana, this is the order. And the Gemara...
And the 15 is the brother that wasn't born yet.
Which one? No, so number 14. Number 14. 14. They put it 14. You're right. That we would have thought that is the last one. But Kalaso is the last one. The daughter-in-law is the last one. And it's stuck in over there. And the Gemara is going to talk about all these things. Why did the Mishnah choose this order? The first thing the Gemara thinks is that the biggest one would be number 12. Should be the one that should be first, because the whole halacha, the source of this halacha, that other arayas do override Yibum, that Yibum doesn't override all these other arayas. The source that we're going to talk about tomorrow, what the source of this halacha is, it's going to come from Achos Ishto. That's where the pasuk talks about it, by the wife's sister. That's where the pasuk is going to learn that. We'll learn out from there that the Yibum does not override arayas. So since that's the source, that should have been listed first. That's how the Gemara starts. So if we go back to the Gemara. Now here's where the Gemara starts. Since the source of all these 15, that Yibum doesn't override them, the source is going to be from the Achos Isha. That's a wife's sister. That's we said on the list is going to be number 12. So why does the Mishnah not mention that first? Just in the order. Just no halacha. Just the order. The style of the Mishnah that it chose to make the 15. Why did it choose this order? It's not halacha Gemara. It's just going to say, why did the Mishnah want this order? We would have thought that the source of everything is going to be later on. We don't know it yet, but tomorrow we're going to see that the source of this halacha is learned out from a drasha that it says by a wife's sister, that it doesn't, it overrides Yibum. So that should have been the first one. So the Gemara is going to try different reasons of the order of the Mishnah. Maybe the Tana wants to say according to the severity of the Issa, the severity of the erba. There are some that are, we don't know by Arai, some are skila, some are sreifa, some are chenek. That's only Eshes Ish. It's not going to be in all this over here. And there's also those that are not chayv any capital punishment. It's heavenly punishment, kores. So that's less than all of the earthly punishments. So since there's a list, an order of the severity, maybe the Tana chose to say the most severe first.
What is number one? What is?
So the one that it says in the Mishnah is Bito.
Oh,
That is Sreifa. The truth is that there are 9 Sreifas, and they're all in the Mishnah. The first, let's get on the list again. I hope it's okay to jump around with, I don't know how to do it better than this. But if we go to the list, the first 3, and the second 3, his wife's 3, and then the mother-in-law, those 3, those all Sreifa, because they're all called a mother and a daughter.
Right.
The pasuk, when the pasuk talks about this, it says it. If a man takes a woman and her mother, but the woman and her mother could also be that the first woman and her daughter. It doesn't. The way the pasuk describes it is that he married a woman and then he also had relations with her mother. It would be the same halacha if he would. It's learned out from Midrasha that so too if he would have married a woman and then have relations with her daughter. That's also the same thing. And the Gemara says even if it's not a wife, even if not his wife's daughter, even if it's going to be his own daughter, all these things are learned out. But all those are Sreifa. So there are 9 in the Mishnah that are Sreifa.
The one was also Sreifa?
Yeah. The case of having relations with a wife and then a mother-in-law. That's Mamish Pas. That's what the Gemara says should be first. The Gemara asks if you want to talk about the source of where this halacha comes first from, that's going to be from a chosisha. This one is a chosisha. That's what the Gemara first asks. That halacha that you learn out that all these arayas override yibum. Like our Mishnah says, potus Tzarasein, not only they don't do Yibam, also Tzarasein, it's all learned out from a Chosisha. That's where we learn it out. We'll see tomorrow where we learn it out from. So that is not first. Why is that not first? Okay, maybe it's going to say the order of the severity of the arayas. And then it's going to be these 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That will be good why it goes first. But as a kasha, the one that says beferish, the one of these 9 that it says openly is going to be the mother-in-law. That's the one that it says in the pasuk. So that should have been first. Of these 9, that should have been first. Back to the Gemara. Maybe the Mishnah wants to go according to the severity of the Avera, of these arayas, and it's not so simple. Which one is more severe? The different punishments, which one is the most severe? So maybe it goes according to Rabbi Shimon, who says that Sreifa is chamor. There's going to be later on, we're going to see the only one that's different than Sreifa. Now, Mishnah has 3 kinds of punishments. The ones we just said 9 are going to be Sreifa. There's also a lot of kares over there. And then the one about Kalaso is Skila. We hold Skila is more severe than Sreifa. The punishment Skila, we say it the way we say it on Yom Kippur. Skila, Sreifa, Herek, V'chenek. So we hold Skila is more, but maybe the Mishnah will be like a Shimon who holds that Sreifa is more severe than Skila. And that's why it says the list of these 9 first.
What's Kalosa?
Kalosa means a daughter-in-law. It's very, very interesting that the word Kala, we say Chas and Kala. A Chas and Kala means a son-in-law and a daughter-in-law. we don't talk about them in relationship to each other. That's what the words mean. That's what the Torah says. So that's what it means. So Chasan the Mem Lamulos. It said the word Chasan. Oh, Chamir. So Chasano by Moshe Rabbeinu and Yisrael.
The daughter-in-law is the worst of women.
It's skila. There are other skilas also. There are a mother is skila. There are other, but in our Mishnah, the only one that's here that skila is only kala, only a daughter-in-law. There are 9 shreifas, the first 9, and then the last one kala is skila, and the ones in between are all kores. There's no earthly punishment. So the Gemara is trying. Why is the order of the Mishnah of Bito Baspita? Why does it go in that order? If you talk about the source of the halacha here that Yibam doesn't override, that's a chosisha. It should have said. You want to say according to the Chumrah, so then, if it goes according to Reb Shimon, otherwise Kala should have been first. But we'll say it goes according to Reb Shimon that says Sreifa is more Chamor. But still, the word doesn't like that because Yachi listening Chamosa Bereisha, they get Sreifa, but Chamosa Ksiba. The place where it says openly of these 9 that there's Sreifa, the pasuk talks about Ishki Kachas Isha Vesima. That's Sean Rashi brings the pasuk over here. You can see the pasuk inside. Where did it go? Here's the pasuk. Ve'ish Asher Yikach. That's where it says this. So we learn out that it also includes all these 9. But the place where it says it openly is a woman and her mother, which is a mother-in-law, that he had relations with his mother-in-law. So I should have said that one first. Va'od, basa chamosa lisni kalasa, the basa streifa, skila chamura. Also, you explained why the first 9 are first, but then it shouldn't talk about all the kares. It should have talked about kalasa, because that's more chamor than kares. Kares is not an earthly punishment at all. It's only heavenly punishment. So there are 2 reasons why the Gemara doesn't like this. First of all, it should have been chamosa should have been first, and also after the 9, whatever they are, it should have said kala, because that's also a capital punishment, and it shouldn't have been in all of the 6 other ones. How many are there? Now the 5 is number 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Those 5. Those 5 should have been before. Should have been after kala, because the daughter-in-law, which is skila, even though it's number 2, Sreif is more than skila, but it goes before kares. So the Gemara rejects this first try. The first, we had already 2 tries. The first kasha, there should have been not a try. The first kasha, the main kasha was that a chosisha should have been first. We'll say that it goes according to the severity. Then it should have been chomri. Then it should have been chamosa should have been first, and then also it should have been kala after those 9. So the Gemara tries another try. Another try. The order of the Mishnah. Maybe the reason why bita goes first of the 9 is because we learned it out of a drasha, means that, as we said, that the pasuk where it says beferish is chamosa, when it talks about the woman and her daughter, the mother-daughter relationship, that he had relations with both of them, the pasuk talks about chamosa, and we learn out also the other bito that is not related to his wife at all. It's his. He had relations with whoever he had. It was his own daughter without having the wife. He means he raped somebody. So that's why it's his daughter. So the Maisa also came out that it's a kind of a mother and a daughter. But that is a drasha that doesn't say beferish like chamosa. So maybe that's the reason why it says it first, because on the contrary, we don't want to say the pasuk, there's 2 svaras. You might say that the beferish drasha, that's the reason why that should go first. There's an opposite svara, that's something you learn out from a drasha, that's more beloved. Like it says, sometimes, on the contrary, what's a beferish pasuk, it's a beferish pasuk. Something that I had to learn out, maybe that is more reason to be preceded. When you want to say it, you want to say the drasha even before the Perish pasuk. This is far like that. Something like Shalana from a drasha goes first. Maybe that's the reason why Bita goes first. The Gemara continues. Kulu nami midrasha asu. That wouldn't be a reason to say Bito first, because all of them we learn it from a drasha. Going back to the beginning of the Gemara, that as far as Yibum, if Yibum overrides them or not, we said Achos Isha is the only one where it says the drash, it could be Perish. And the rest of them, and even that one's also a drush, it's not a Perish pasuk, but if anything, the rest of them are drushes. The Gemara is now juggling between 2 points. One is the drush, if Yibum overrides it or not. And then we said Achos Isha is a place where it says the Perish, the rest of them are drusha. And now we're talking about the whole Isser, that it exists, that there's such a kind of erva. So the Gemara, that's what the Gemara says now. But Bito, Iki Suid Midrasha, Damarava, Amali of Yisrael, Baravdimi, Asya Hena Hena, Asya Zima Zima. The Gemara is trying to say the reason why Bito goes first is because it's learned out from a drasha, not only the halacha that Yibum doesn't override it, that you're right, everything's a drasha. Only Achos Isha doesn't learn is the main drasha, everything else is learned out of that. But the whole issue that there's such an error in the first place is not a Perish pasuk. Bito is learned out from a drash. Because Rava says we're not going to go into the drash, but it makes 2 gezerah shavas. It says the word Hena, and it also says the word Zima. There's a gezerah shava Hena Hena, and there's a gezerah shava Zima Zima. From there, you learn out that a daughter. It's us that there's a erva called a bito. So that's the Gemara's suggestion. That's the reason why it goes first. But the Gemara says that's such a nice thing that you're saying that the drasha goes first, and you put the things that are more beferish go last. Then the kasha would be that on the contrary, Achos Isha, which is the most beferish one as far as the halacha, that's where you learn out the din that Yibum doesn't override it. So then Achos Isha should have been the last one on the list, and it's not. We said that Achos Isha is number 12. It should have been all the way at the end. Just to go to the list a second. The order of the Mishnah goes these 3, Bito, then it goes his wife's 3, and then the mother's-in-law. Then it goes to how does it go? Then it goes to his half sister, and then the aunt, and then his sister-in-law. This is Achos Isha over here, and then the other sister-in-law, then Kalasa. That was the order of the Mishnah. Achos Isha, if you want to say that the reason why it says Bito first is because that's the most of a drasha, and you say the drasha before you say the things that are beferish, Achos Isha, which is number 12 over here, and that is the source that Yibum doesn't override all these things. It should have been the last one. That's the Mor's Kasha. So the Gemara tries to answer it. I did the Iri, the Isser Achvasa, Tana Achos Ishto. The reason why we put it together is because we want to put all the sisters together. There are many sisters. I'm sorry for jumping back and forth, but and the Gemara says, the right way to just see this part of the Gemara also, so just see that inside. I don't know if there's a way to be able to put the screen at the same time. I'd like to do that, but I don't. The Gemara says that there's 9. The first 9 is all kinds of mothers and daughters. And the reason why it says Bito first is because that's more of a drasha. Chamoso is the pasuk where it says beferish, that there's such an isser of erva, and this is a drasha, so we say the drasha first. The Gemara said if you want to say the drashas first, and all these are considered a drasha as far as Yibum goes, that Yibum doesn't override it, then Achos Ishto should have been last. The Gemara says maybe because you see all these Achosos go together. After we finish the first 9 that are the streifer ones, mothers and daughters, then it goes into all kinds of sisters. Achos Imo, Achos Imo, Achos Ishto. They all come some kind of sisterhood. Achos Imo means his half sister. Then it means his mother's sister. Then it means his wife's sister. Then it says Eishes Achiv Me'imo and Eishes Achiv Shalo Ayabalamo. Eishes Achiv. Okay, we'll get to that soon. But the Gemara asks that maybe it says maybe the reason really Achos Ishto should be last because it's the most beferish. And that's the drasha you learn out that the Yibum doesn't override it. Maybe we wanted to keep it together with the rest of the achosos. Over here, had achos. So maybe we put number 12 over here, even though it should have been last, because I wanted to put together with the sisters. It should be easy to remember, probably. But the Gemara says, no, then he should have taken this whole list. All these achosos should have put last. Then he should have taken 10, 11, 12. You want 12 should be the last one. So you want it to be together with 10, 11. Okay, so put 10, 11, 12 to be 13, 14, 15, and move up 13, 14, 15 in the list. So the Gemara still wasn't happy with this teretz either. So this also is rejected. The Gemara is just talking about what the order is. Now the Gemara is the next try. The next try is going to be the final try. Ella Tana Korbi Nakat. The order of the Mishnah goes according to how closely related they are, not according to the importance of the drasha, if it's beferish, not if it's a drasha, not if it's chamor, not according to the severity, according to how closely related they are. And it explains. Tana Bito, Ubas Beno, Dikrova Yatsmo. The first one's out, but related to him, not related to anybody else. It's not relations to his wife. It's because of his relations. It's his daughter, it's his granddaughter, it's his, those are the 2 granddaughters. And then after that, it talks about his wife's relations. After it talks about 3 generations below, under him, and from his side. Then it talks about the 3 generations downward and from her side. And I did the Tana Shlosha Dos Lamata Dida, Tana Shlosha Dos Lamala Dida. And after it says 3 generations, not 3 generations, but those 3 that have to do with her descendants, then it talks about her ancestry. It talks about her mother or grandmother, the grandmothers. And Tana Choso, Vachosimo, the Krova Yatsmo. Then after it finishes that, it goes on to other relations of his, which would be sister and Achosimo, that Krova Yatsmo doesn't have to do with his wife, it has to do with his own relation. His sister, half a sister, or his mother's sister. Once they're mentioning sisters, so it throws in Achosish over there also. Over there, this is what Moshe was asking before, that how come we would have thought should be all the way at the end, because it doesn't have to do with relation. Allah, I did the Iri be'isser achva, Tana Eshes Achashloy Balamo. Once it's talking about something that has to do with sisterhood, brotherhood, was also a sister-in-law. Means once you say that there's no mitzvah of Yibum, if they didn't live at the same time, so it comes out again to be a isser of a sister-in-law. So that also belongs in that list. And then Kalaso is the last one. So that's the answer of the Gemara. A brother-in-law, sister, whatever you say, the 2 brothers, and that's also called a sister-in-law. In English, they call both of them a sister-in-law. So that's the end of the first sugya. We just discussed the order of the Mishnah. How come the Mishnah chose to present it in this order? The Gemara first tried maybe the Ikad Rasha should be first. So we say no. That means that's the kasha. It doesn't say the Ikad Rasha first. Achosish chose first, as we'll see tomorrow. And then it tried about the severity, also didn't go well, the order of the severity. And then the Gemara tried that the drasha should be first. Also, it didn't work because it should have been the Chos Ishta, which is the most favorite, should have been at the end of the list. And therefore, the Gemara comes out that it goes according to the order of how related they are to him. And the Gemara is happy with that. That's the order. Just to point out that this Gemara is not usual. You don't have that. The Gemara spends so much time. The whole Gemara coming up in today's daf is sometimes the beginning of the Masechta. The Gemara is much more medayek on the Mishnayos, and also these kind of Gemaras that talk about these nuances is sometimes not even from the Gemara, it's from the generation after the Gemara, which is called Rabbanan Savaroy, and usually some reason it gets into the beginning of the Masechta, but I don't know more than that. That's the first sugya. And now we continue. New kasha. After that, we finish the first sugya, the order of the 15th. Now, with new question, potros osros. The halacha is that if you're not allowed to do yibum, if there's no mitzvah of yibum, you're not allowed to do yibum. We said it yesterday. It came up right away in the beginning of the discussion that it's really a sister-in-law. The live brother to marry his deceased brother's wife is a sister-in-law. That's mamash achiv kares. The only reason it's mutter is because there's yibum. If there's no yibum, not only is no mitzvah, it's also not beira. So why does it say potros? So was saying it should have said osros, that they're not allowed to do. The answer is tana osros havamena asaliyaben avamichol cholsef. That's what I've said. Osros. So was saying. I would have thought that those words alone just mean that there's no yibum, but it doesn't mean that there's no chalitza. Maybe there has to be a chalitza. The Mishnah wants to tell you there's no chalitza either. That there's no yibum and no chalitza. Maybe that's the reason why it has to say potros to say that there's no chalitza either. So the Gemara says, let us say it's has to do the chalitza. Say osros and also no chalitza. For listening to Asura Lachlos, let it say that you're not allowed to do chalitza either. The Gemara jumps up. Why shouldn't you be allowed to do chalitza? Is it also to do chalitza? Chalitza that nothing happened. To do yibum is also because he's having relations with a sister-in-law. But to do chalitza, she takes off his shoe and she spits and she says and he says, but doesn't do it's no issa. My God, what's the problem? How could it have said asa to do chalitza? So it's going to have to say asa to have relations, asa to do yibum, and you don't have to do chalitza. That's too long. The Gemara Mishnah doesn't like to be long. So once it's going to say that you don't have to do chalitza potros, so then it says potros yibum also. But the Gemara says no, it is possible that it's asa to do chalitza. You're not allowed to do chalitza because if someone's going to do chalitza, they might come to do yibum also. Allah, why do you think that it's not asr to do chalitza? It's going to happen if you're going to say that she does chalitza. She doesn't have to, but if she does chalitza, they might say do yibam also. That we find such a gzeira. The more answer, so we're still holding about akasha. Why doesn't it say osros? It should have said chamesh esrei noshim osros. So we're saying, and it means they're not allowed to do yibam, they're not allowed to do chalitza. The answer is chivin the b'makam mitzvah. Who does here at Sarah? The shalom b'makam mitzvah. Shari yomishamachi tani potros. It's going to come up in the next couple of pages that there would be a havamin. It's come up, it might even come up right now at the end of the page. I forgot. It might be right here. That there's we're going to say. Yesterday we said that not only are these 15 women also to have yibum, but also if there's a co-wife, the co-wife also doesn't do yibum. Mm-hmm. And the Gemara is going to learn that out. That there's iser to do yibum even for a tzara serva, but as we went yesterday and today also, the issue is only because if there's no mitzvah yibum, she's a sister-in-law. The tzara, the co-wife, is going to be a sister-in-law also. What happened? There's the surviving brother is marrying, well, that's the question, should he marry his deceased brother's wife? So he has an heir that surely he can marry. One of them is his daughter. And there's also there's also a co-wife that the pasuk says there's no yibum also. If there's no yibum, she's a sister-in-law. And of course it's husband, right? And but that's only because there is a issue of erva, that she's also a sister-in-law. What is the din stam? Is a person allowed to marry a tzara erva? Has nothing to do with yibum. Somebody married a woman, 2 wives. Somebody married 2 wives. Reuven married 2 wives. One of them is the daughter of Shimon, and one is another wife. And then Reuven died. No yibum. Nothing. No question with yibum. Is a person allowed to marry a tzara erva? Is a person allowed to marry the co-wife of a relative who's an erva?
That's what we learned. No.
So he said yesterday, no.
That's only if she's going to be usher because she's a
Because she's a co-wife.
because a co-wife of what? A co-wife was a sister-in-law. No, that's not enough to be Asr. It's not Asr to marry a co-wife of an Erva. It's only Asr to marry a co-wife of an Erva if there's a question of Yibum over there, if she's also a sister-in-law. The reason why it's Asr to marry the co-wife is because she's a sister-in-law. She's a sister-in-law without Yibum. Yes?
Sorry, Rebbe, the husband doesn't die, but they get divorced, then she would be mutter.
That sounds right, no? Let's say someone married someone's niece. I mean, Ruven married my niece. Not mine, you should say. Ruven married someone's niece. And now and married another woman. And then before Ruven dies, he divorces the niece. Then he's allowed to marry his niece, no?
As the Mishnah says, the Mishnah said that case. The Mishnah said that case, that's good. It could be there are more cases, I'm not thinking now, that the case the Mishnah says that if they died, if the Erva died, would it be that the Tzoras Erva is also? I think there are more cases, I'm not thinking now. But there's no, the whole issue of Tzoras Erva, there's no issue of Tzoras Erva.
Well, it's only if she's alive.
Only
Sorry, Rebbe, not the Erva died if the Baal died. Before it, wait, hold on, sorry.
is there an issue of marrying a co-wife of an Erva if that co-wife is not sister-in-law? There's no issue, there's no relation at all.
Right, like
there isn't a relation. What?
Like an ex-sister-in-law. Like they got divorced before he died, then he died.
It has to be simple. We're getting too complicated.
What kind of an erva is not a sister-in-law then? In other words, it wasn't his.
So it should be simple. It's just not coming to me. Somebody married two wives, and
One of them is related to his brother.
he divorced both of them. I don't know if you need that. And now somebody wants to marry the one who was a Tzoras Erva. There's no din of a Tzoras Erva. There's no din of us being asked to marry a woman
Who was a co-wife.
who was a co-wife to an Erva.
No, it's because of the Yibum. It's only because of Yibum. That's what you're saying.
Right. So it should be simple. I'm not sure why it's getting complicated. Somebody married, let's say somebody married, here's the case. Somebody married a mother. Somebody's mother got married to somebody. She has another wife. Yes? Somebody's mother got married to somebody and he has another wife.
And he has
And he
another wife.
has a co-wife. And then he died or he divorced her. Is that person allowed to marry his
Mother's co-wife.
mother's co-wife?
That's what you're saying, yes.
Yes. There's no issa to marry a co. There's no issa.
The family's only when it falls to you.
Right. Only when there's Ibum and there's a sister-in-law that's involved. So then, if there's no Ibum, she's a sister-in-law. All these cases that happen on the chart over here, all these Soras are also a sister-in-law because they were married to this deceased brother. They weren't related otherwise, but but she was a sister-in-law. So that's what the Mishnah is. That's what the Mishnah is saying, that Soras are awesome. But if there wouldn't be a B'makom Yibum, there wouldn't be a Nissa. Good? The halacha is good?
It's like the Yibum, in
There's-
the case of Yibum, it's like he's still alive almost.
No, you don't have to say that because there's the Isser are us. All these arise are us even after death. All the arise that it says, a mother, a grandmother, or whatever it's going to say, all these Isurim is even after death. The only one that changes after death is only a Chosisha. So if somebody's not allowed to marry his daughter-in-law, he's not allowed to marry his daughter even after his son dies. All the arise stay the same. Only sister-in-law after that pasuk says that he's not allowed to marry his wife's sister as long as she's alive. But after she dies, he is allowed to. But everything else is us. But he was saying that the Issa to marry a Tzoras Erva is only because she's a sister-in-law. She's a sister-in-law without the mitzvah of Yibum. A brother's wife is also to marry a brother's wife even after he dies. And not only because he's alive. It's also to marry a brother's wife even after he dies, only if there's Yibum.
Yeah.
And here, if there's no Yibum, these Tzoras Erva, she's a brother's wife. But there's no Yibum. That's why she remains a sister, a brother's sister, brother's wife that's also to marry. But there's no Isser Stam of a Tzoras Erva. There is no such Isser of a Tzoras Erva. There's only Isser of a Tzoras Erva who's a sister-in-law. Am I making sense? The Isser to
By
marry.
definition, if it's his brother's wife, she's his sister-in-law.
Yes, but there's no Isser to marry any Tzoras Erva only if she's going to have an Issa besides the co-wife if she's also going to be related in a way.
If she's gonna be related.
But there's no Issa to marry a co-wife of an erva if she's not related. Good?
Why are you saying it's, why don't you say simple? It doesn't fall to you, there's no problem.
That's what I mean to say.
Okay, fine, so I just understood it differently. Okay, fine.
If it doesn't fall to you, there's another way of saying that it's not the brother's wife.
Right, the whole problem is if it's, okay, fine.
There's no
So
mitzvah,
it's,
there's no mitzvah of Yibam, and she's a brother's wife. So then there's Issa to marry her because she's a brother's wife without Yibam. But don't make a mistake and think that it's Issa to marry an Erva's co-wife. There is no such Issa. It's only in this case where she happens to be also a brother's wife. You look not happy. Take the case of a mother. Someone's mother has a co-wife, and the husband, whatever, divorced her, or the husband died. Is he allowed to marry that woman who's the co-wife? He's not allowed to marry his mother. Is he, and they, well, he's allowed to marry a co-wife. No issue of marrying a co-wife of an erva. There's no issue to marry. Here, it doesn't mean anything. It's
Because
only
she's not an erva to him. It
right.
would only be if she was a sister-in-law, then she's
Right.
an erva.
Right. That's what Amish is talking about. That she's an erva, and there's no yibum. We're just saying there's no yibum. So, right. So back to the Gemara. That's what the Gemara wants to say. The reason why it doesn't say osros. If
Where's
it,
the Gemara want to say that?
I'll see it in a second. The reason the kasha was why doesn't it say chameshes v'noshim osros? So we're saying because that's dangerous term. If you say it like that, it would have sounded there's isser of Sarah Serva. You would have thought that nothing to do with yibum. You would have thought that you're not allowed to marry a co-wife of an erva. So that's why it said potros. Sarah saying to say there's no yibum, and you understand there's no yibum. You're not allowed to marry her because she's a brother's wife. But don't make a mistake and think that there's isser of Sarah Serva. I'm sorry that I made it complicated. It should have been
But
simple.
it says, but listen, surah lechilutz. That's a step before.
Yeah, we're a step before the Gemara. The answer starts by chiyuv.
For chalitza, right?
Right, and that would have been good. Yeah, and the Gemara first the Gemara says that's why be us, and then the Gemara says this, and it should be us. So here's where the answer starts. Chivin the makom mitzvah hidasira. Sorrow. Sorrow is only usher. The makom mitzvah means that it's a case of a sister of a brother's wife. That there was a havamina to do yibum, and now we're saying don't do yibum, so he's not allowed to marry her because it's a brother's wife. But shalom makom mitzvah sharia. But she is mutter if it wouldn't be a case of a brother's wife. Mishamachi tani potros that you shouldn't make a mistake and be machmer more than necessary and think that it's also to marry an erva's co-wife. That's over. Next sugya. How come it says that potros min chalitza umina yibum? The term that the Mishnah says, potros umina yibum. Let us just say yibum, and I'll understand that there's no chalitza there. There's no, so there's no chalitza. Why should I understand it by myself? Gemara says, no, but you might have thought that there's no yibum, but there is chalitza. You might think that there's enough that they take off the mitzvah of yibum, but you still have to do chalitza. That it goes together. That it's only there's no chalitza if there's really a chiv yibum. But there's no chiv yibum, no such thing as a chiv chalitza without a chiv yibum. Next question: how come it says Mugama? How come it says chalitza and yibum? Let it say yibum and chalitza. The order of these two, listening mina yibum and mina chalitza, or just should have said mina chalitza lechuda.
Why should you say mina chalitza?
And I would understand that there's no yibum either. If it says patam mina chalitza, also yibum. The answer is this also should have been highlighted. I just missed it. Let us just say either that or that. The answer is there's going to be a sugya later on, much later down the road, which one is preferable. If his brother dies without children, which is preferable to do, to marry yibum or to do chalitza? Says machlokes. Some hold yibum is preferable, some hold chalitza is preferable. Halacha l'maaseh, the Ashkenazim hold that chalitza is preferable. That's why nowadays you don't hear yibum happening. I heard by the Yemenites that they do yibum. They would do yibum. I don't know nowadays, but till not so long ago they did yibum. So Amish knows like Abba Shol that says chalitza is preferable, so therefore it says chalitza first.
Okay, can I just ask a side question?
I'm not sure if it's kedai now. If you think that it's not, if you think
I
that,
don't think it's going to split.
okay, go ahead.
The pasuk says b'shirish.
So that- Okay, so we have to see that that's
Okay,
good. That's
fine.
the Mishnah.
Leave it on the side, leave it on
Okay,
the side.
that belongs on daf. What does it say here?
Wait. The second
Let's
phrase, go
see.
back to
That is good. Here, look, lamet has kuftas. I think the
Okay,
kasug is
so-
kuftas. Okay. And then the question is, how come it says a number? The Mishnah says chameshes, where we can count. It should just say elu, whatever, elu nashim potros, and we can count ourselves. And also, it ends off after it says the whole list. It says haray elu, that these Pater, it says it again. It also says these. It's coming to emphasize after these 15, and it says again after these. So that's a question. How come it counts it 2 times? Not that it says 15 2 times, but it says these. That's the kasha. So if it's okay with everybody, we didn't do this till now.
15 means it's going to limit something.
Lamute means they're coming to exclude something. Right? Only these, no more.
Uh-huh.
So if it's okay, I think we didn't do this in the past 2.5 years, but if it's okay to skip the next 7 lines, because it's impossible to understand what it's talking about without seeing the Gemara later on. So when we see the Gemara later on, we'll come back. If it's okay, Vishutchem,
I agree.
So to wait, to talk
until Menani Mili.
about
Now it's going to be confusing, and later on it won't be confusing. So why the Gemara expects us to know the Gemara later on, so we'll do it then. And also, I don't know it yet. that's the real answer. But I don't think the Gemara expects us to know it yet. The Gemara says later on there's going to be Rav and Ravasi, and we'll see as we go on. But now we get to, so until now that was all preparatory, the whole Mishnah, how come it says the order? How many questions do we have? Just the chazer over how come the order, how come it says the order of these 15, and then how come it says potos, it doesn't say osros, and how come it doesn't say just mina yibam? How come it doesn't say mina chalitza or say yibam chalitza? And then the last question was how come it says the number 15 and dafka these. So that's the end of that sugya and the structure of the Mishnah. And now we're getting to the meat of the sugya, Menani Mili. How do you know that Arayas don't do Yibum? Maybe the same way that Yibum overrides every time it's overriding Erba because she's a brother's wife.
Yeah.
So maybe it overrides all these Arayas. If it happens to be a daughter also, so let them have relations in order to. So that's the kasha. How do you know? And we said a second ago, we started the Gemara, we said that Achos Isha is going to be the source. That was how the Gemara started. The Gemara knew this already. The Gemara said that Achos Isha is something that it says by a wife's sister. That's going to be the source that it doesn't override, that it overrides Yibum. There's no Yibum to a wife's sister. What's a wife's sister? If two brothers marry two sisters, and then one of them dies without children. So besides being a brother's wife, it's also a wife's sister, right? Maybe the chart helps for that. This case over here, that is we say this man with this woman, right?
This is
his wife's sister. This is husband and wife, and he had a brother and she had a sister. Right. If the Reuven married the sister, right? So he had 2 brothers that married 2 sisters, and then one of them died without children. So then this live brother, the surviving brother, besides being his brother's wife, that's a regular Yibum, it's also his wife's sister, and that's an Erba, and it doesn't override. And the Gemara is going to learn out. That this is the place where it says that Yibum doesn't override. They don't do Yibum, and this is going to be the source for everything else.
There's a pasuk that says it doesn't override.
That's what we're holding now. How do you know that it doesn't override? Then the source is going to be from a wife's sister. The Tan Rabban, Yishalach Osalo Sikaf, let's roar. That's the pasuk that it says that it's also
What's the end of the pasuk?
Bechaya, the green.
Huh? Bechaya.
A woman to her sister means he married the sister already. So don't take a woman and her sister. Let's roar. Let's roar means like a sorrow, which we said that 2 co-wives are called sorrows. So don't take her to be a co-wife. A sister is a wife's sister is an exception, that it's only us to marry a wife's sister as long as the wife is alive. But once she dies, then it'll be mutter to marry her sister.
Right.
That's not a get to us now, but we're going to focus on the pasuk Aleha. It says, don't take it Aleha b'chaya. The pasuk would have read well without that also. It could have said, V'shalach usalo sikach l'tzro l'galo servaseh b'chaya. Leave out the word Aleha. It's understood that it means the wife. It says b'chaya, so you don't have to have Aleha. Aleha matam alama. Why does it have to say the word Aleha? The Fisha Namar, this is the drush. Yevamo yava Aleha. There's another pasuk that says Aleha. This first pasuk is talking about, when it talks about Arayis, Achimos Kadosh, talks about what their relations are. It's also to marry a wife's sister in her lifetime. But there's another pasuk where it says, oh, there's going to be a Gzera Shov over here, that it says that when a man dies without children, her brother-in-law, Yevamah, her brother-in-law should have relations with her. That's the mitzvah of Yibum. but it says the word aleha, and this aleha is going to be exer shava. You might think that with the mitzvah to do yibum is even if they're also an erva, like our 15 cases of the Mishnah. You might think that the pasuk is even to do yibum, even if there's an erva included. Nemar kan olev, nemar lalan olev. You have the exer shava olev. Ma lalan b'makom mitzvah, kan b'makom mitzvah. B'amrachman lo sikach. That the pasuk is saying that this Allah means even if it's that Allah, even if it's a question of yibum, when the Torah says don't marry a wife, sister, even if it's a Allah case, even if it's a yibum case.
But what if they get divorced?
No, even if they're divorced, only she's alive. If a person divorces his wife, he's not allowed to marry a sister. Only if his wife dies, then he can marry a sister.
Even if they're divorced.
Even if the divorce is usher.
Right.
Only
So
right.
if they're divorced and the divorced wife dies,
No, if she dies, she dies.
Yeah.
Right. No difference if she dies from a divorce or from marriage. If she's not alive, it's mutter to take her sister. But if she's alive, it's usher, even if she's divorced. Right.
What is it again? Makom mitzvah.
The case of yevamos yava aleha, this pasuk, yevamos yava aleha, this pasuk. I can't highlight it. It's not letting me. That's talking about yibum. So this pasuk aleha is talking about yibum. It's saying that don't marry your wife's sister, even if it's a aleha case, even if it's a yevamos yava aleha case. When the pasuk says don't marry your wife's sister, even if it's a case of yibum.
Even if it's a makom mitzvah, don't do it.
Right. That's good. So that's how we know. And that it says.
That's the end of the price.
The price continues.
Okay.
Because we only know that there's no yibum to the co-wife, I missed it. We only know there's no issue to the sister, to the wife's sister herself.
Yeah.
How about her, if she's the co-wife of that? This was the Mishnah. Not only them, the erva also tzarasa. If the deceased brother had another wife, that's not related.
But we didn't have another wife yet.
In the Mishnah
So far,
we
we
did.
have two brothers and two.
Right. And I was saying that the dead also had another wife.
Okay.
So could the alive brother do yibum to that co-wife? But Amisha said no. Now it's going to tell you the drasha. How do you know that?
Okay.
That's Ve'en the Elohi. That pasuk only says about herself that he cannot do yibum. Tzarasa minayin. How do you know that he's not allowed to do yibum even to her co-wife? Tamad loma litzror. That's why Amisha drasha. We're doing drasha, not doing pashut pshat. The pashut pshat means don't take a woman with her sister to become a co-wife. That's pashut pshat. But now we're dashing into the drasha world. We're saying that this halacha that I say that don't do yibum, aleha, don't do yibum, even to the tzror, even to the co-wife. Lo sikach litzror. And we said aleha means the yibum case, and even litzror. Of course, it's a drasha, nothing to do with the pashut pshat, but don't even take the co-wife. And that's how we know our halacha in the Mishnah that says poter tzarasayim. Mainly other tzarasa menayin. How do you know the co-wife's co-wife? If we said, what was the case over there? That the third brother, there was a Levi over there also, a third brother, that did do yibum to the co-wife because no reason why he shouldn't. He wasn't related to anybody. So his brother died, so he married that woman, and now he dies, and now it comes back to the original surviving brother that your first brother died, now the second brother died also, and now there's no erba over there. No, that since at one point she was a tzoras erba and she was called brother's wife, not with yibum, so she forever becomes an erba, and she cannot have. Now we can't do yibum to her, and not even to the co-wife of her. That's called tzoras tzarasa. How do you know that? Because it says litzror. It could have said latzor. It means for the shorish over here, some mashma that the shorish of the word is not with two resh; it only has one resh. So the fact that it says with a litzror, it could have said latzor. How come it says litzror? A double drasha, even tzoras tzarasa. Till now, we learned out about a wife's sister, a chosisha, that there's no yibum. How do you know everything else? How do you know the rest of them? The other, what do we say, 14? There are 15 altogether. How do you know the other 14? This is what the Gemara meant when we started off today. If I could scroll back to the beginning of today's Gemara. I don't know where I went. Yeah, right here. The Gemara started off, everything's learned out from Achosisha. That we're up to it now. Here the Gemara says Achosisha is the main one, that where it says, that's the drasha that says that you don't do yibum when there's a Achosisha involved. And now we're going to say, and everything else, Kulu is learned out from there. That's why the Gemara wanted that it should be first on the list, because that's the main source. So now we understand what the Gemara first meant. And here's what the Gemara is saying. The Gemara already just said about Achos Ishto, and now it's saying that's only Achos Ishto. How do you know everything else? Mainly Allah Achos Isha, Shar Rais Benayin. How do you know that other Rais also, other 14 also, there's no Yibum if there's an Erva? Amit, Ilana from Achos Isha, like Mamatzina, just like over there. So here also, there's no difference. Ma'achos Isha Miyuched She Erva. The Chavnu Lazdon, of course, Lashi Gasachatas. Vasul Yavam. Just like the case of it's a model case that it's a case that it's she's an erva, and what kind of erva that if they would have had relations intentionally, so it's chayv kores. If it was unintentionally, it's chayv korban chatas. And the pasuk says you cannot don't do yibum. So too anything similarly. Of course, she erva b'chav lazan lekores. She goes chatas asur yavam. Like if there's no difference, there's no difference. This is one example. Like you call it maybe like a davar hayi b'chlal. Anything similar to that, then anything which is similar, then it's an error. So also there's no yibum. Ainli Elohein to Rasemanine. How do you know that same case? If there would be an error that Tzaros also don't do yibum, the same thing. Ma'achos Isha, the same thing. But Achos Isha, not only is she also it asks the co-wife, so too. Ma'isha Achos Isha miyachada she erva v'chav nazon lekores. It's very long, a lot of words, but the idea is simple. And also tzaras asura also. So anything which is similar to Achos Isha is also the same halacha. Avkol, any other woman, she erva b'chel mazon lekoros v'shegig chatas v'asur liyavam also tzaras asura. And that's how we know that not only Achos Isha, everybody mekanamu chachamim that goes back to the Mishnah. Chamei says v'noshim potus sarasein v'sarasein achlisim a'imatz ad sofa olam. Almost finished. And now the Gemara refers to the next mission, which we didn't learn yet. After the 15, it says there are another 6, which we didn't do. We'll see it in a couple of days. I forgot how far down the page, how far down the road it is.
Mishnah is Gimel, no?
Yud Gimel, huh? So it's another 2 weeks. Okay.
Another what, 6?
Another 6. There are another 6 besides the 15 that are different. All the 15, just to get onto the chart.
Are all from the office.
All of the yes, but all the 15, they all were erva to the deceased brother, but they were not erva to the deceased brothers, to the live brother, in other words. All of these ervas were erva to the live brother, to the miyabe, but they were not related to the dead brother. That means when he married them, everything was fine. He's allowed to marry his brother's daughter. He's allowed to marry his brother's mother-in-law. He's allowed to marry his brother's half-sister. There was no problem. The first brother that married, everything's fine. It wasn't erva to them. But it was erva to the dead brother, to the live brother now, when he dies, and now there's a question of yibum. So if this Reuven married his brother's daughter, so now Reuven cannot marry his daughter. That's the Mishnah. That's our Mishnah. But then the Mishnah is going to say there are another 6 arayas that are related also to the live brother. For instance, this mother over here that we could have put yesterday, nobody asked how come it's not filled in red over here. All the other women are filled in red. There's only one?
Because it's not his mother.
It's
not the dead man's mother. Is that what we're saying? It's his brother's mother. Is that why you didn't put it in? You have it that the live man's mother, but maybe she's not related to him. She's not related to him, to the brother. It's not his mother. Is that true? That's not true. That's the way the chart looks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not holding. I hear, but the Mishnah is going to say 6 cases that are related also to the live brother that he was not allowed to marry. He was not allowed to marry, and over there it's going to say that there doesn't part of the Torah. If he would have married his mother, he would have had relations with his mother.
Yeah.
And then he died,
Well,
and he also had a co-wife. He had another wife. We're not going to say that the brother should not marry the co-wife.
You won't?
Because that with the relations he has with his mother is not considered a wife, and therefore there's not going to be no reason.
It's just a wife.
Right? Maybe it's the other way. Maybe there's the other way to say it. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I think it says. So that's what the Gemara is now going to talk about.
No.
This is really about we spoke about.
So in other words, he had a forbidden relationship.
Right.
With somebody he shouldn't have.
Right. And that's not going to pater the co-wife from evil.
Yes, so having a forbidden relationship is not being married. to someone.
Right.
That's what
It's also going back to that's right, and I think there's something else happening here also that I don't know how to say it now. I don't have it clear, but the point is going to be what we spoke about before, that there's no issur to marry a co-wife of an erva. There is no such issur. With the way we said it now, he wasn't married at all. The example we're giving is that he wasn't married at all. But what the Gemara is gonna say somehow is that there is no issur to marry a co-wife of an erva only if it gets in the way of being related. There's a relationship, like we said, the case of all these cases in the Mishnah, when there's no yibum, so then the tzara, the co-wife, is going to be the brother's wife, right? All these cases, this dead brother had another one, besides being married to one of these 14 ladies, 15. So he also had another wife.
Mhm.
So if there's no mitzvah of yibum on her, so when he dies, the live brother cannot marry that tzara because it's a brother's wife without a mitzvah of yibum. But if there's not going to be an issue of yibum, which I'm not giving out good cases now, so I'm sorry for that. But if it wouldn't be a case of yibum, it wouldn't be a brother's wife, so there is no inherent issur of tzara serva. We said it before, and what?
She has a child. That's a typical example.
Somebody married his wife's sister, and then he has another wife. So there's no relationship.
Someone married his wife's
Sister, and he has a second wife.
He said two brothers. He's saying two brothers and two brothers.
No, not brother. A stranger married his wife's sister, and then he has the other wife. So that other wife's is
Very simple. That's what we're looking for.
yes.
Somebody here we have the brother. If you forget about the brother, there's no brother. A stranger marries his wife's sister. There are two brothers-in-law.
Yeah.
Through the brothers-in-law, through the wives. Two sisters married to two men. Not to two sisters married to two men, and one of them has another wife, and then he died. This brother, not brother, he said brother, no man. May a man marry again, please, Dr. Fine.
So somebody married his wife's sister, and he also had a second wife, and then there's no relationship between the second wife, the Surah of, and
The sister-in-law is the heir, but he's not allowed to marry his wife's sister.
right,
But that doesn't be a reason why he shouldn't be allowed to marry her co-wife.
right.
Okay.
Yibum with the co-wife.
No yibum.
Oh, just.
There's no yibum. They're not brothers.
Oh,
A man wants to marry his
his friend,
sister,
his
his wife's sister's co-wife.
Mhm.
So he may. Thank you. It should be very simple then. I'm sorry that I was drinking a cup. So it seems that the Gemara now is going to say, don't think that it's us. Before we said that it's not us, so we said that's why the Mishnah didn't say Osros Torah saying because it might have given that impression. Now we're getting to the pasuk to say that that's true. So to see the Gemara inside. You might think that this halacha would also include that it says lo sikach litzror. This case of the pasuk that Dr. Fine said that the pasuk is talking about a wife with a sister, and it says soror, and darshan maybe that you're not allowed to take the tzara of the wife's sister, even nothing to do with yibum. So no, also machos ishto. You learn from machos ishto. That's only talking about the makom yibum. There's a question of being wife's a brother's wife. That there's a case over here that it would have been a case of yibum. That's what we're going to learn out from here. I've called all the advice we're going to learn similar to that is the case where it's Efshim going to say lachim means that it's in place of yibum. That's when we say asura liyavam. Then it's saras asura. But these cases that it's not a case of yibum, so we're saying with Torah. Since it's not a case of yibum, it's not the case that it's the brother's wife and it falls to yibum. There's no falling to yibum over here. So then there's no such thing that the Sasa married its co-wife. And the Mishnah Gemara ends off, She'ein tzara ela meyach. So according to this shot, it's saying that there's no isser of marrying a tzoros erva only if it's from a brother, and the meaning that is if there's no yibum, so it remains a brother's wife, That's why it's asa, because Eisha Sachim. It's asa to marry a brother's wife. The Gemara sends off now, Azar Shemanu Onish Menayin, all these cases that you weren't allowed to marry for whatever reason, there's no yibum, you're not allowed to marry. How do you know that it goes back to be mamish like a regular erva and the chayiv kares, whatever would have been? There's no leniency because it almost was yibum. Anybody that does any of these abominations is chayiv kares, and it comes to be marba. Even these cases, the kol is coming to be marba. Any of these, even if it will be in the case of almost yibum, it's also chayiv kares. End of today's sugya. Okay.
Can you sum it up?
To sum it up, I'll try. The Gemara wants to know.
Can you
I'm sorry, I made it more confusing. I wasn't clear with this case of the Sarah without Yibum, so it seemed confusing, but the Chara shouldn't be. Yes, please.
what is the Torah?
I'll just do this and then we'll do that.
Okay.
The Gemara wants to know the order of the Mishnah, because we would have thought Achos Isha should have been first, because that's the source, as we just did now. That was the source that all of these erva, they override Yibum. There's no Yibum, so it should have been first. The Gemara tries first to say that it goes according to the order of the severity of the erva, but that's why Pito, the Gemara says, should be first because it's Shreifa, but the Gemara says no. Of those that are Shreifa, Chamosa should have been first because it's the place where the pasuk says so, and also after Shreifa should have said Skila, which is going to be Kalasa, which is last on the list, and it should be number 10. It should have been after the first line. It should have said about Skila. It goes before Kares. So the Gemara tries another to try that maybe Bita goes first because that learned out of a drasha, not only the issue about Yibum that the Gemara says of everything is learned out the drasha that erva doesn't override erva overrides Yibum from a drasha. But the Gemara means to say that Bita was special drasha, that the whole issue that Bita was aser is also from a drasha heina zima. So the Gemara says, if so, then Achos Isha should have been last, because Achos Isha is the most beferish, because since that's the source when you learn out that Yibum is aser to an erva, so Achos Isha should have been last. And don't tell me the reason why it's not last is because it wants to be together with the rest of the sisters, and that grouping of sisters, then put all the sisters at the end also. So that didn't work either. The Gemara comes out, the order of the Mishnah is according to the closeness of the relationship, nothing to do with severity, and talks about 3 generations of his down, 3 generations of hers, 3 generations of hers up. Then it talks about the sisters, and then what? Then it says Kalaso, and was also kind of a sisterhood. Then the Gemara goes through a few of the diukim. How come it says potros b'aretz and say asuros? The Gemara comes out that you might have thought what we just said now, that it's aser to marry a tzoros erva even if there's no yibum involved, nothing to do with the brother's wife. And so once it's dangerous to say that tzoros erva is aser. It's not so aser. It's only aser if it's going to be a brother's wife. The next kasha was, why doesn't it just say aser potros mena yibum? Why does it talk about chalitza? It wants to tell you that there's no chalitza either. That it's dependent. There's only chalitza when there's yibum. There's no yibum. There's no chalitza. Why doesn't it just say chalitza or say yibum and chalitza? It wants to say that chalitza goes before yibum like Abba Shol, which is going to be a machlokas later on. How come it counts these numbers of 15 twice to tell you that not everything is us, as we'll see later on, and we'll come back. Bezos Hashem, what's daf is this going to be on? This should be on daf Yud Aleph Yud Beis. Then we should have to come back here and explain what the Mishnah meant, that it's coming to say that not everything is, so we're saying some things don't, and then we'll come back to that. What's the source of all this? The source of these things that Arias override Yibum is from the pasuk that it says by marrying a wife's sister. It says the word Aleha, and that means the same Aleha that says by Yibum, that even in a Yibum case also don't marry a wife's sister. And all the other Arias are also learned out because it says Litzror. I'm sorry, before that. How do you know not only the wife, but even the tzara? That's one for the word so it's litzror, and even the tzara is sorry because it says litzror instead of saying litzror. All of the rice learned out because of Mamatzinu Ma'achos Isha, also tzara saying. And then the last thing was that this only is talking about the tzara serva in the case of Yibum where it's a brother's wife. If not for that, there's no issue of a tzara serva. Like that, the fine gave us the simple case of marrying a wife's sister's co-wife, and nothing to do with the brother. The brother's not involved, so there's no such issue. And in all these cases where there's no Yibum, and there's the rice stays the same as it was originally, and therefore the person that says kol asher yasim kol tevos el is including even these cases also to be regular chorus again back to the same owners as it was if there wouldn't have been any even.
Is that whole thing a huge price?
Which one? Yes, I do think so. I think so. It's one price. This whole thing, the Tanarab one, I think is all one price.
And so again, what would the Torah?
The Tzara means that
We have
there are three brothers.
We have to add a brother.
Right.
We had a brother.
And he did do Yibum to that co-wife. Why shouldn't he have? He did have to do. He had to do Yibum
He did Yibum
to the
Are we
co-wife
talking about
of
two brothers
the.
and two sisters? Or
No. Talk about three brothers.
Yeah.
That one of them married one of the other brother's daughter. Bito. He married his brother's.
Like your chart.
Right. He married his. Yeah. In this case, he married his
He married the
brother's
daughter.
daughter,
There's
and
another
he died.
brother.
But there's another brother.
And it's not his, it's
No,
his
no.
niece too.
It's not. Yeah.
That third
Yes.
brother, it's just his niece. He'd be
Right,
allowed to marry her.
Right. So he does. He could. Right.
He could, so since,
There happens to be a co-wife. He married the co-wife. He could have married the niece. He married the co-wife,
yeah.
and then he also
He has
dies,
had-
and he dies.
And he had a co-wife or no?
That's if
Where
you want
do
to
we
go
get the
further.
co-wife
If you want to go further, but if you did, that's
Oh, he had a wife. He had a wife. That's why it's Sarah. Because the brother who was Miyabim had a wife.
not only sorry. You want to talk
I
about
want to know what
Sarah.
Sarah.
So this says that he had another wife,
This third brother
right?
who married, did Yibum
He did Yibum.
on the niece,
He did Yibum.
on his brother's, on the widow, who's his niece. Or no, on the
He
co-wife.
did on the co-wife.
He did on the co-wife, he married the co-wife, but he did Yibum on the co-wife, and now he died.
Right. And now we want to know if the original brother who was alive, who didn't do Yibum to anybody,
Yeah,
could he do Yibum now to this brother's
widow.
the
Original
co-wife?
wife. Original wife.
Original
Brother's
wife?
original wife.
Not the one that he did Yibum on. Because that was the Tzara that he took. He took the Tzara. Now she's a Tzara of a
He
Tzara.
took the
She's the
Tzara.
co-wife of the co-wife. Right. Thank you, Avnissan.
The
The one who,
co-wife of the co-wife. He married the co-wife, which was mutter for him to marry.
and he has another
And
one.
he has another wife, and now this first brother can marry her because it's a co-wife of a co-wife.
He cannot, so he
He
cannot
couldn't
marry
marry the first co-wife because she was his daughter's
co-wife. And she,
her co-wife he can marry.
no, he cannot.
Oh,
That's
he
the Kiddush
can't-
now.
That's the
called
Kiddush, is
Tzara.
that he can't,
Right,
he goes that
because
far
the,
that he
because the
can't
co-wife
marry
became an
her.
Erva, and now she's a co-wife of that Erva.
I see, when he did Yibum, when the third brother did Yibum, she was still an Erva to the first.
And that
brother.
remains forever.
And that
now-
remains
and now-
forever.
And now
Okay,
that
thank
co-wife
you.
becomes a co-wife. Thank you, everyone listening. Thank you.
Thank you, okay, very good.
Thank
Yes.
you. I just half a minute. Go ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll be back in 2 minutes or so.
Thank you very much, Rebbe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amazing.
Okay. I'm done it. I made it. You recommended, you referred me someone.
Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome back. And it was preferred to learn Hilchos Purim. So this is Rabbi has a Mishnah Berurah with them. So this is at the end of these are the last halachas of the Mishnah Berurah, the last volume 6. Start stuff Reish Pei Vav, and this is the last halachas that there are in the Mishnah Berurah, end of Orach Chaim. So it starts. If any, we'll look into the Mishnah Berurah, but we'll read the Shulchan Aruch. If anything comes up, we'll like we usually do. I didn't prepare. I was doing Daf Yomi, so I didn't prepare. So we'll do as we go as it goes along. I have to stop the recording, especially because I didn't prepare.